Hey there, fellow Dice Masters. Welcome back to DM Dice Masters. In light of the second round of Rainbow Draft Weekend, I decided to devote a segment centered around this highly fun format. The awesome thing about Rainbow Drafts is that it creates a more level playing field on which veteran and newer players can compete. This is due to the nature of the format, in that you try to make the best team from the cards that are passed to you. For all of you newer players out there, I'd like to briefly go over what a Dice Masters Rainbow Draft is. First up, the basics. Each player needs to bring their 8 sidekick dice, their basic action dice, and basic action cards. Players are allowed to choose the basic action cards they'd like to use after the draft has completed. However, the same 2 actions must be used throughout the event. I typically bring all of my basic actions from all of the sets I own. Sometimes the tournament organizer for the event sets specific rules limiting the sets from which you can select the basic actions. For example, if you will be drafting from a Marvel set, the rules might be that you can only use basic actions from the Marvel sets. So be sure to check the specific event rules before selecting your actions. WizKids recommends that players be divided into groups of 6 people. However, you may choose to draft with more or less players. Each participant is then seated and has 12 Dice Master packs to draft with. You then separate the 12 packs into 2 piles of 6 and open one set of 6 packs at a time. While opening your packs, you'll want to verify that the cards and the dice match. Also, if you draft the Yu-Gi-Oh set, make sure that the serial numbers on the dice match the corresponding cards. During the process of opening and verifying the packs, keep the cards you have opened secret. Once all of the 6 packs have been opened, each player sets their pile of 12 cards to the side. The process is then repeated with the next 6 packs. Then those 12 cards are also arranged in a pile and placed in front of you. It is very important that these 2 stacks of 12 cards are kept separate from each other. Everyone's dice are moved to the center of the table and arranged so players can see exactly which dice and how many of each are available during the draft. And this is where this particular format gets its name. It's affectionately referred to as a rainbow draft due to the common practice of sorting the dice by color. Next, each player takes the pile they most recently opened and takes a moment to review the cards. Then you select one card, set it face down in front of you, and pass the remaining cards to your right. The card placed in front of you begins a pile of cards that you will later use to build your team. After everyone in the group has selected a card, you then take the pile passed to you on your left and select your next card. This process is repeated until you are passed a single card to be placed into your pile. After the first stack of 12 cards have been drafted, you then have a moment to review the cards that you have selected. Everyone in the group should have 12 cards in their pile at this time. Once everyone has reviewed their cards, players will place their stacks face down in front of them and begin drafting their second stack the same way as they did with the first. This time, you will be passing your cards in the opposite direction. Once drafting has concluded, everyone then takes dice from the rainbow in the center of the table. You want to make sure that you have a matching die for each of your cards. For example, if you drafted 3 Catwoman cards, you would get 3 Catwoman dice. Finally, you review all of the cards that you have selected and build a team of up to 8 cards and up to 20 dice across those cards, just like you normally would for a constructed team. Now that the fundamentals of how rainbow drafts function have been covered, I'd like to take a moment to go over some tips to assist you while you are drafting. These are the things I try to keep in mind when selecting cards. The most important thing I try to keep an eye out for is my win condition. This often involves looking for characters with abilities such as Overcrush, Unblockable, or Direct Damage. Once I have my win condition secured, I then look for characters or actions that provide a means of removal or control. That way, if my opponent happened to draft something particularly annoying, I'll have a way of dealing with it. Next up, I try to keep an eye out for anything that will help me ramp or add dice to my rolls. This isn't always easy depending on the set that you are drafting. Sometimes you might be forced into using one of your basic actions to help with that. Other things to be on the lookout for are low purchase and low fielding cost characters. Unless you are drafting the Uncanny X-Men set, you most likely won't have an abundance of energy at your disposal. Grabbing these types of characters will definitely help you out in the long run. Sometimes the piles you are passed might seem like complete duds. Don't get frazzled. Take a moment to carefully reread the character abilities to see if there is something you might be able to take advantage of. Also, take a moment to see if there is anything in your pile that could potentially be used against you. Sometimes it might be beneficial to draft it rather than pass it. If all else fails, draft a rare card that you might be missing in your collection, or to use for potential trade fodder. And if you happen to pull a super rare while opening your draft packs, congrats! You're already a winner for the evening. For some more great advice on rainbow drafts, please check out the awesome articles by Oddball Narwhal at thereservepool.com. He offers some great insight concerning this format. Until next time, fellow Dice Masters, this is Diane with DM Dice Masters. Take care.